had reincarnated with his past memories. Our protagonist's name is Gray. He had never believed in the phenomenon people referred to as the light at the end of the tunnel, those rare occurrences where people, after waking from near-death experiences, would exclaim, "I saw the light." But now he believed it. That was not important anymore. The most important thing was that he could understand the language of this world, which was a good sign. Arthur, the name he acquired after reincarnating, had a mother called Alice, with gentle and kind-hearted person. She held the reins tightly in the family. His father, Reynolds, was a dependable and charismatic man if you ignored his occasional childishness. Arthur was thankful that he had been born to a loving family, as previous life was filled with difficulties. But right now he was still a baby. The little command over his limbs and the inability to even control the bodily functions that came along with this prison of flesh. The world right now is much more archaic period compare with his before. Wondering, did people usually carry around weapons in the past? I guess he's supposed to assume these vials of suspicious-looking liquids they are passing off as medicine are being sold legally. Arthur knows that knowledge is strength, and he has assessed his surroundings over the past week. He's confident that he now has a firm grasp on what to expect. But when his father comes home and lifts him up, even throwing him into the air and spinning him around, accidentally knocks his knee against the wooden surface. This causes him to cry. Alice reprimands Reynolds and casts a healing spell to restore Arthur's knee. Now Arthur realized he spoke too soon. Perhaps he knew nothing of this world after all. In his previous life, he was a king who led armies and outdueled representatives from countries all over the world. Among his many achievements, he had never felt as proud as he does now. Now that Arthur has learned to crawl, both Alice and Reynolds are concerned about him accidentally hitting corners or shelves. As Arthur crawls in front of a mirror, it marks the first time he truly sees himself in this new life. He can't help but find himself absolutely adorable. With a mischievous thought, he thinks to himself, "Watch out, future ladies, prepare to have your hearts broken." During night, Arthur waited. His mum closed the door and started his mission. Arthur managed to throw his blanket, crawl out of his crib. Arthur thought, Alice must think I have fallen asleep. I have approximately an hour or so before she comes back to check up on me. Arthur crawled in full speed to his destination, study room. Ever since he discovered this place, he had been sneaking in every night to learn more about this world. Icathan, the continent he had been born in, comprised of 3 major kingdoms: Lenwa, the elven kingdom deep in the forest; Darv, the vast underground kingdom and home of the dwarves; and Sapin, the human kingdom, and easily the most populated region. Both this world and my previous one shared a monarch system, but rulership here is passed down rather than earned. Arthur found early on that this world is vastly underdeveloped compared to his old world. But the reason for the lack of technological advancement, he realized, is because of magic. In his old world, they had a life force called Kai used by practitioners to strengthen their bodies and weapons through rigorous training. This world has a similar force called mana. However, unlike Kai, which existed only inside a person, mana is present all around us. The power to control mana is largely genetic, with roughly 1 in 100 children possessing it. Meanwhile, Arthur was reading books, but he was cursed with a diaper rash, causing him to continuously scratch it. Anyway, mana can be used in various ways. The 2 most common methods are augmenting and conjuring. Augmenters enhance their bodies with mana, allowing them to possess incredible strength, defense, and agility. However, their weakness lies in their limited range. Conjurers emit mana to the outside world, allowing them to bend their surroundings to their will. However, they must supplement their own mana core with mana from the outside world to form a spell. Alice was what they called a deviant, more specifically an emitter. They are a rare type of mage able to cast unique restorative mana. According to the book Arthur reading, a mage's first awakening happens between early adolescence to late teenage years when a mana core manifests. The mana core sounded uncannily similar to the Kai Center in his previous life. To form a Kai Center, children were taught to meditate and sense the fragments of Kai scattered inside their bodies and gather them into a single place. While Arthur was trying to test if he could do it, he thought, "It's working." Suddenly, Alice grabbed him and exclaimed, "There you are. You worried me like that." At that moment, Arthur thought, "Mother, I am about to embark on my journey to become the greatest mage in this world. Don't make me appear like a constipated infant." It turned out that amidst his concentration, he had indeed soiled his diaper. Alice thought, "It's been over 2 years, yet I continue to learn more about my baby each day. Arthur is the most adorable with his auburn hair and intelligent azure eyes. No, he'll get into trouble if I'm not a strict and dependable mother. Ray isn't much help. He tried teaching our baby to fight when he could barely crawl. Arthur loves going to the merchant's strip in central Ashbur. We visit almost every other day for fresh food and educational purposes. Watching him grow up so fast, I wonder what he'll be like in the future. With Ray as his father, I expect Arthur will have an interest in becoming an adventurer. I just hope he fares better than those naive young teens seeking fame and fortune." I wish I could stop him from sneaking into the study. Maybe I should move his crib there, but that can wait for another day. Arthur thought, it's been about 2 years since I embarked on my challenging journey to the study. I've learned so much since then, and it's been captivating to discover something new every day. Reynolds had been chanting for a few minutes now, his concentration evident. Suddenly, a stone lifted up from the grass as Reynolds charged another spell. Arthur wondered what kind of magical phenomenon his father would conjure this time. Then, all the stones lifted up in the air, and Reynolds yelled. In an instant, the stones simply poofed and dropped back to the ground. Reynolds turned his head, showed a thumbs up to Arthur, said, "Your daddy is awesome." Arthur wondering, that is it? 3 minutes of your utmost concentration foe flings something you can physically throw with less effort. Meanwhile, Alice tapped Arthur's head, said, "Are you watching your daddy? Oh, for goodness sake, he ruined the front yard again." Arthur learned fairly early on that his father was an augmenter. He wondered what he will be when his monocore awakens. Alice carried Arthur, said, "Looks like some needs a nap." Arthur said, "Mama, books," but Alice told him maybe after. So Arthur, though no choice, he has to use his skill. Then Arthur, pretending to have an irresistibly adorable expression that no one can resist. And Alice has no choice, said, okay, you can play in the study for a little bit." Arthur thought to himself that every weapon in a great warrior's arsenal must be utilized, even if it may seem demeaning at times. While he was engrossed in his reading, Reynolds accidentally knocked something, causing a loud noise that caught Alice's attention. She went to investigate what had happened. Meanwhile, Arthur reflected on his greatest accomplishment thus far, aside from acquiring knowledge of this world. It was the progress he had made in forming his monocore. Over the past 2 years, he had been meticulously moving tens of thousands of tiny fragments of mana within his body, gathering them near his solar plexus. He understood why it would naturally take until adolescence for the core to fully form, given the slow gravitation of these fragments towards the center of his body. It had been a challenging task for both his body and mind, but these 2 years had not been in vain. He was almost there, just one last piece remaining. In the meantime, Reynolds had unintentionally knocked down a tree, leaving Alice speechless. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion in the house, prompting Reynolds to quickly protect Alice from any potential harm. Alice immediately shouted, "Arthur is still in there," which shocked Reynolds. He swiftly rushed towards the source of the explosion. When Reynolds arrived at the scene, he knelt down and laughed. Confused, Alice asked what was wrong. That's when they noticed their not even 3-year-old baby. Arthur floated in the air, defying gravity. After a moment, he descended back down and exclaimed, "Wow, I feel great. So this is what it feels like to have a monocore." Even the trees looked greener, however. His excitement quickly turned into confusion. He questioned the surroundings, realizing he wasn't in the study room. He wondered if they were attacked and who dared to destroy the home of a king. Over the following year, aside from rebuilding the house, many things happened. Alice taught Arthur how to read and write. Reynolds taught him the basics of mana manipulation and augmentation. Since Arthur's body was still too small for sparring, he focused on basic body workouts. But it was not too long ago, Reynolds decided to let Arthur practice with a wooden sword, which Reynolds had gotten for Arthur's 3rd birthday. During the teaching lesson, Reynolds told Arthur, "Match the flow of mana with your breathing. Just like your hair or lungs, your core is just another organ." Arthur wondered if most 4-year-olds would understand these abstract instructions. During practice, Arthur knew that his dad wouldn't let him rest until he accomplished the task. He only had a little bit of time to study before dinner. With the sense of the mana flow, he delivered a powerful smash, causing the wooden stick to break. Reynolds was pleasantly surprised by how quickly Arthur achieved the feat. Arthur then went into the room to continue his studies. In this world, strength is measured by the color of one's monocore. Initially, the monocore starts off black due to the mixing of the body's blood and other impurities with the monoparticles. Over time, as the impurities are filtered out, the monocore becomes purer. The progression of colors is as follows: black, red, orange, yellow, silver, and white. Each stage is further divided into 3 shades: dark, solid, and light. The lighter the monocore, the purer and more powerful it becomes. Suddenly, Alice called out to Arthur, signaling that it was time for dinner. Arthur couldn't help but think, can't a baby get some alone time around here? How else am I supposed to learn? Reynolds, feeling a headache, suggested, "Honey, I think it's time we find Arthur a proper mentor. Alice replied, but he's only 4. Besides, who said you would be able to teach him? Reynolds responded, exactly. But I never expected our son to be such a prodigy in mana manipulation at the age of 4. I fear that I'm holding him back. He has so much potential. Alice told Ray that she didn't want their child to leave home and go to a city hundreds of miles away. Reynolds explained that Cyrus is not just any city and assured her that his friend would take good care of Arthur. Arthur sighed as his parents continued to argue over the decision. Suddenly, Alice and Reynolds slammed the table in frustration. Reynolds turned to Arthur and asked for his input, saying that he had a say in the matter. He asked Arthur if he wanted to go to a big city and have a real teacher. Arthur was speechless for a moment, thinking to himself, wait, they're letting me decide. Isn't this too much to ask of a 4-year-old? Eventually, Arthur responded, can Mommy and Daddy come too and meet the teacher together? Both Reynolds and Alice burst into laughter. It seemed that they both agreed with Arthur's suggestion. They made the decision to go to Cyrus and began preparing for the 3-week journey. Arthur thought he saw it here somewhere, but Alice took over the book and said, you need to get to bed. We are heading out early tomorrow. I know it is rushing, but your mom and dad's old friends from the Twin Horns are going to Cyrus as well, so they are taking us along. Your dad is with them right now. The Twin Horns had been in the area for a while, even helping rebuild their home when they had the time. From what Arthur heard, the party consisted of 2 conjurers and 3 augmenters. This would help whatever troubles they might run into. Arthur feels exited for moving on from this small, quiet town. It is time to see what this world truly has to offer. Next day, Arthur's family went to meet their friend. Reynolds proudly announced, fellas, I want you all to meet my son, and he allowed Arthur to introduce himself. Arthur confidently said, hello, my name is Arthur Lewin. Thank you for coming with us to Cyrus. Adam Crench, an augmenter specializing in spears, patted Arthur on the head and jokingly remarked, such manners, and are you sure Ray's your dad, kid? Suddenly, Arthur was lifted and embraced by Angela Rose, a conjurer specializing in wind magic. She exclaimed, he is just too precious. Thankfully, you look more like your mom too. Arthur found it hard to breathe and wondered what was going on. And another person lifted him up, who was Durden Walker, conjurer specializing in earth magic. Arthur thought he resembled a wise old dog. As Arthur turned his gaze, he locked eyes with Jasmine Flamesworth, an augmenter specializing in dual daggers. Lastly, there was Helen Shard, an augmenter with expertise in magic archery. After all, the journey began Tilda. On the way of journey, they encounter few werewolf, but very quick taken down by them. Helen questioned, Arthur, how are you up? Tired? Arthur nodded his head, since it is his first time traveling in this life. Helen continued, so your pops has been bragging nearly the entire way here that you are a genius mage. Did you really awaken a year ago? Suddenly, Adam said he needed to do a little stretching before going to sleep. So he questioned Reynolds, do you mind if I play around with Arthur? Arthur thought, stretch out by yourself. Reynolds told him all right, but just be careful, as they just barely moved on from light strength and mana exercises into sparring. And Arthur grabbed way by Adam. Adam questioned, Arthur, are you ready? And said, you know how to reinforce your weapon, right? Boy genius. Arthur tried to make eye contact with his father, hoping he would rescue him from the situation. However, his father told him to go for it. With no other choice, Arthur got serious for the sparring. He launched a dash attack with his wooden sword, but Adam was already prepared to defend against the hit. Arthur then attempted to blink behind Adam, but quickly realized that his infantile body was unable to do so. Undeterred, Arthur gathered power in his sword and continued his attack. He managed to dodge Adam's spear attack and swiftly aimed for Adam's waist, causing him to fall down. Arthur prepared for another powerful attack, but Adam countered with a kick. Although Arthur successfully dodged the first hit, he couldn't evade the second one. At that moment, Newton's third law of motion came to Arthur's mind. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, and boy did that opposite reaction hurt. Newton slapped Adam and scolded, too hard, idiot. Adam defended himself, saying, I haven't taught him to fight. What sort of hellish training did you put him through to create this little monster? Reynolds responded, I didn't teach him that. Alice quickly questioned, is this what you've been studying? Arthur replied, yeah, I learned this by watching Dad and reading some books. Adam commented, books, huh? Well, you're still going to teach me some of those movement techniques of yours. Jasmine nodded in agreement. Arthur explained, so you just have to cross your back leg over your lead leg and then kick off with mana while letting your body almost fall. And you have to. Almost there, kind of. Several days had passed since they began their journey to Cyrus City. In the meantime, Arthur's birthday had come and gone. Jasmine had gifted him a dagger as a birthday present and started giving him lessons. The training sessions with Adam, Helen, and Reynolds were making decent progress. Arthur was surprised to see that Jasmine had already mastered a few techniques. As they continued their journey towards Xyrus, Adam reminisced about the times when Arthur's father, Reynolds, had gotten them into all sorts of trouble. Helen chimed in, reminding Adam that he had also caused his fair share of mishaps, like that one time when he accidentally set off. Meanwhile, Arthur noticed that his mother, Alice, seemed a bit uneasy. When he asked her about it, Alice assured him that she was just a little tired and would be fine. As Arthur continued reading his books, Jasmine couldn't help but stare at him, eagerly requesting more lessons. Suddenly, the carriage shook violently. Bandits were attacking them. Helen yelled, "Prepare to engage." Angela cast wind barrier, protect the carriage from arrows thrown at them. Now everyone ready for battle. Arthur thought, damn it, we are completely surrounded. Enemies is everywhere, from the hills and ground. The head of bandits said, "Pretty good catch, boys. Leave only the women and kid alive and try not to leave scars after all. Damaged goods will only sell for less." Arthur thought, it seems I have been living in a bubble for too long. I almost forgot that every world has its own share of filth like him. Damaged goods? Arthur picked up his dagger, but Alice hugged him instantly, said, "Don't worry, I am here." The enemy's arrows seemed relentless, but Durden and Reynolds formed a defensive barrier to protect everyone. A few arrows managed to reach Arthur and Alice, but Angela swiftly intercepted them with her magic spells. Helen found a strategic position and began shooting arrows at the enemy, taking down a few bandits. Reynolds charged forward, delivering a powerful blow to few bandits, while Helen skillfully covered the rear with her arrows. Jasmine swiftly slashed the bandit, while Adam launched a powerful spear attack, taking down 3 bandits with a single blow. Suddenly, a large bandit lunged at Adam from behind, but he managed to dodge the attack and conquer with multiple stabs of his spear, defeating the bandit. As an assassin, Jasmine relied on her agility and speed to deliver precise slashes to the heads of her enemies. One of the bandits attempted to use a whip to attack Jasmine, taunting her and claiming he would train her so well that she would beg to stay with him in the end. Jasmine skillfully dodged several whip attacks from the bandit, but she still sustained a few scratches. Arthur pondered if he could assist her. He questioned whether he stood a chance against an adult augmenter with his current body. Suddenly, Reynolds was thrown a distance and crashed into the carriage where Arthur and Alice were seated. Arthur immediately noticed that his father had been struck by the leader of the bandits. Arthur urged his mother to heal his father quickly. However, Alice's response surprised him as she said she couldn't. Confused and worried, Arthur wondered why his mother couldn't heal his father. Reynolds assured Alice that he was fine and his injuries were not life-threatening. He reassured her to do her best. Turning to Arthur, he urged him to listen carefully. Reynolds explained that after Alice used her healing spell, the bandits would go after her. He acknowledged that he would be able to fend off the leader, but he couldn't protect both Arthur and Alice at the same time. Reynolds instructed Arthur to take his mother back down the trail they came from and not to stop. Arthur protested, refusing to leave his father. He insisted that he could fight and reminded Reynolds of what he had witnessed. Reynolds patted Arthur on the head and said, "Listen to me, Arthur Lewin. I know you can fight. That's why I am entrusting your mother to you. Protect her and protect the baby inside her." Arthur recalled back his mother action, now only know that her mother was pregnant. Reynolds continued, "I was planning on telling you when we got to Xyrus." Arthur replied, "I will protect Mom, I promise." Reynolds said they have got 4 mages on their side. The head of bandit mad and yelled they have a healer, don't let her get away. Arthur held Alice's hands and said, "Come on, Mom." Arthur thought, "Don't die on me, Dad. Adam is covering them retreat from bandits." Suddenly, a bandit dashed towards Alice. Adam instantly held him down. The arrows attacked towards Alice. Arthur noticed and take his wooden sword to defend it. It's successful, but the sword broke as well. Arthur felt something wrong. There are supposed to be 4 mages, but from the battle only 3 mages spotted. He can't find the last one. Meanwhile, head of bandits yell, "Forget the plan, Damien. Don't let them live." Arthur noticed the last mage casting an orb of water and throwing it towards them. He realized that even if he could dodge it using mana, his mother wouldn't be fast enough. Frustrated, he apologized to his mother for any bruises he might cause and pushed her away. Arthur made a split-second decision. If he couldn't escape, he wanted to bring the mage down with him. He used his mana-infused dagger to throw a binding spell, successfully tying up the mage as they both fell from the cliff. As they descended, Arthur held onto the mage with all his strength, hoping the mana string would hold. Burden tried to use his earth palm magic to save Arthur, but it was too late. In that moment, as they plummeted, Arthur couldn't help but smile, realizing that everyone had done their best. At this moment, Arthur smiled. Looks like everyone else will be okay, but damn, I always wanted to be an older brother. The council, the ones who actually governed the country, managing its politics and economy. In a world riddled with problems like decreasing birth rates and limited resources, wars were replaced by duels and armies by kings. I was one of them. Marlorn said, admiring your handiwork. I see, while being part of the council is rewarding, I won't lie and say I am not envious of the fame and glory you kings receive upon victories. Anyway, to what do I owe the pleasure of this unexpected visit? Gray said, I am retiring Marlorn. I spent my whole life for the sake of being the strongest. And for what? Lame glory? I was still an orphan, with everyone I cherished gone. I had give up everything I had in that life for the chance to go back to Eifber and see them all again. Arthur wondered where he was and how he was still alive. When he looked at the dead body of the bandit, he squirmed and vomited. Overwhelmed by the situation, he fainted once again. As he regained consciousness, a leaf gently fell on Arthur's face. Slowly, he opened his eyes and noticed some fruits nearby. With great effort, he tried to climb towards them, desperately longing to eat. Exhausted from his efforts, he eventually fell asleep. The next day, when Arthur opened his eyes, he realized that his body was still in a weakened and injured state. Despite his attempts to wake up, he found it futile. Determined to overcome his condition, he focused his mana and formed the black core within his body. Gradually, he managed to stand up and retrieve his bag and dagger, preparing himself for what lay ahead. Arthur couldn't believe he had survived the situation, regardless of where he was or how much time had passed. He knew he had to keep moving forward. Suddenly, he heard a voice saying, "Oh, you're awake." Startled, Arthur thought to himself, "Don't tell me the corpses." The voice then asked, "How is your body?" Arthur wondered if the corpse was going to rise up. The voice reassured him, saying that the corpse wouldn't be reanimating if that was his concern. Feeling a moment of relief, Arthur quickly realized that he couldn't trust this unknown voice, no matter how smooth and dignified it sounded. Cautiously drew his dagger and questioned, "Who are you? Are you the one who saved me?" The voice replied, "Yes to your second question. As for the first, you will find out once you arrive at my dwelling." Arthur said, "You sound pretty confident that I will even try to find you." The voice replied, "Well, I am the only one who will be able to get you home from this place." Arthur thought, "That's right. Home. Ray, Alice, and the twin horns, and the baby sibling, are they all right?" So Arthur said, "Miss Voice, may I request directions so that you may grace me with your presence?" A chuckle sounded from a faraway direction. The voice said, "You catch on quick, Arthur. Although it is a bit rude to refer to a lady as Mr. Dot, but your sentiment is there, so yes." Arthur wondered, wait, how did she know my? But before he could finish his sentence, the voice interrupted and said, "I will show you very quickly." The location of the voice appeared in Arthur's mind. The voice told him, "I recommend departing immediately. It will be a lot safer traveling while it is still light out." Arthur's body gradually improved throughout the afternoon, leaving him with only a few lingering aches. However, his mind was filled with questions. What kind of magic had she used to save him from the fall? How did she know they were falling? And why did she only save him? The more he tried to come up with explanation, the more unanswered questions arose. As Arthur listened to the sound of the river behind the rocks, he made a decision. He took off his clothes and jumped into the river to cleanse his dirty body. Suddenly, a voice spoke again, remarking on his carefree behavior and reassuring him that there was nothing significant to see. Arthur reminded himself to remain calm and composed, for he was a king. He dismissed any sadness he felt, realizing that his current body was simply undeveloped. In response to Arthur's melancholy, the voice apologized for startling him and advised him not to pout. Arthur thought, since I fell off the mountain towards the east, I must be near the elf's domain. But I don't see any of the fog that the forest of Elshire is known for. My fears of traveling through the beast glades were quelled by the fact that only small animals seemed to be present. Although I am surprised that I haven't encountered any mana beasts despite the abundant mana in this place, I regret that I can't stay and absorb some of the mana. I need to hurry and get back to my parents. With my mother pregnant, the stress of my potential death might even endanger the baby inside her, assuming they are still alive. The voice said, "I am glad you were able to make it here safely." Arthur picked up a wooden stick and pointed it at the rocks, asking, "Is it nice to meet you?" The voice replied, "As interesting as it would be, I am not a sentient cluster of rocks. You will find me within the crevice." Arthur followed the instructions and entered the crevice. As Arthur climbed deeper inside, the voice reminded him, "Watch your step." However, Arthur still missed a step and fell all the way to the bottom. He thought a warning about the two-story drop would have been nice. As he stood up, shocked by his surroundings, he He took a few steps backward and fell down again. He was completely astonished by the appearance of the one who had been talking to him. Arthur wondered, what is that? A voice said, we finally meet, child. As the dark-armored woman named Sylvia walked towards Arthur, he began to feel scared. Sylvia told Arthur, bugs will fly into your mouth if you keep it open that wide. She explained that it would take some time to open a dimensional rift strong enough to transport Arthur home, but there were special plants that could nourish him until then. Arthur thanked Sylvia and thought that the plants would be fine. He also wondered how his family was doing. As Sylvia got closer to Arthur, she whispered, that one tastes better, which scared Arthur once again. With Arthur's initial fear from Sylvia's appearance slowly fading, Arthur began to ask her all of the questions that had been on his mind since waking up from the fall. Where was this place? Why was she here all alone? Where did she come from? How did she get that wound? And why did you save me? Sylvia replied, this place is a narrow zone that rests between the Beast Glades and the Forest of Elshire. No one knows of this place. I have been warding off anyone who comes close. Although those cases are rare in the first place, you, Arthur, are the first to enter into this domain. Arthur told Sylvia, you can call me Art, which my family calls me Art. Sylvia replied, very well, I shall also call you Art. As for your second question, I am here alone simply because I have no one left to be with. I have many enemies that desperately wish for something that I have. My last battle with my enemies before I was able to escape left me with this wound. As for why I save you, perhaps I was moved by your courage and sacrifice, or perhaps I had simply grown lonely. Even I don't fully understand why. My apologies, Arthur, but I will excuse myself for the night. My wounds are festering and I must be in good condition when I work on the dimensional rift tomorrow. As the fearsome figure clad in dark armor walked away, Arthur couldn't help but think how lonely she appeared. Sylvia turned her head and told Arthur before she went to rest, I almost forgot. My sight is unable to reach exactly where they have gone, but your family and friends are safe, just in case you are not sure. Arthur cried, finally letting go of his sorrows, and said, thank you, Sylvia. Sylvia and Arthur spent hours talking about all sorts of things when she was not preparing the portal. Those hours bled into days, and those days into weeks, while we spent every moment in each other's company. And while Sylvia never spoke about her own life, Arthur slowly began to understand what sort of person this mysterious being was. Sylvia was the living embodiment of the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. Contrary to her trauma-inducing appearance, she was kind, gentle, patient, and warm. She reminded Arthur of his mother in that she was gentle and kind. I firmly scolded Arthur when he was wrong. Arthur thought he just remembered something unpleasant. There was a time when I had expressed my animosity towards the bandits. They deserved worse deaths if any of them made it out alive. I am going to hunt them down. Sylvia flicked her finger on Arthur's head, reminding him, Art, perhaps you are not wrong in thinking that those bandits deserved death. You chose not to save the mage you fell with for the same reason. However, letting your heart be consumed by hatred and vengeance like this will only bring harm to yourself. Instead, continue on proudly with your life, keeping your gaze forward. You will encounter misfortunes again, but do not let grief and rage corrode your mind. Learn from them and face the future with a smile. Only then will you truly emerge victorious. Did I flick you too hard? Does it still hurt, Art? Arthur thought being lectured on morals and life by a figure that appeared to be the epitome of evil had oddly stricken me deeply, and Arthur noticed Sylvia's wound looks like it is getting worse. But Sylvia always replied him, this wound festers from time to time. Sylvia questioned Arthur, it was to my understanding that humans usually awaken around the age of 12 or 13. How have you formed your mana core, already able to utilize mana more efficiently than many full-fledged mages? Arthur replied, my parents said I am a genius. Sylvia said, then perhaps you will be able to learn it. To meditate and absorb mana while moving, and perhaps while fighting if you are good enough. Sylvia replied, humans have a very linear mindset when it comes to mana. You can start with small, mindless movements and gradually progress from there. Mana beasts naturally learn to do this, but humans, awakening later, often struggle with multitasking. However, considering your unique circumstances, if you practice hard enough, you should be able to succeed. Determined, Arthur declared, I will do my best. Arthur understood that mastering this skill meant being able to fight effectively while maintaining a steady inward flow of mana. He practiced diligently every day until he achieved it. Overwhelmed by his success, Arthur exclaimed to Sylvia, I did it. However, his joy was short-lived as he noticed Sylvia lying on the floor, severely injured and bleeding. Arthur, filled with worry, rushed to Sylvia's side. He gathered mana and carefully examined her wound. only to realize that it was deteriorating rapidly. His eyes shifted towards the dimensional rift, understanding that it was the cause of Sylvia's worsening condition. Overwhelmed with guilt, Arthur couldn't hold back his tears. He blamed himself for Sylvia's suffering. Sylvia weakly but comfortingly reassured Arthur, saying, "It's okay, little one." Arthur, amidst his tears, questioned Sylvia's sacrifice for him. Arthur cried, letting his emotions pour out for an extended period, embracing his vulnerability like a child. Sylvia, with limited time remaining, asked, "Have you calmed down a little, Art? We don't have much time left, and I would hate for it to be wasted with you blaming yourself." Arthur replied, "How can I not blame myself? You are basically sacrificing yourself so that I can meet my family." Sylvia said, "You are doing me a favor by allowing me to leave this forsaken cave a bit faster. My name, it really does not suit this form." Then Sylvia showed Arthur his original form.
The tide comes in, pulls some sand back into the ocean.
Pearl white coat of shimmering scales with the huge wings. At the moment, Arthur realized she is a dragon. Sylvia said, "I suppose I am what you humans refer to as a dragon, but we have little time for idle chatter now that I am in this form. I must use my original form in order to finish this portal, but now that my veil is gone, they will soon be coming." Arthur questioned they. "Who is coming?" After the portal was completed, Sylvia told Arthur to listen carefully as she had a few things to say before they part ways. But the object she handed to him was not heavy. Arthur felt as though he could barely hold onto it. It was Sylvia's daughter in an egg form. She gave Arthur a feather to wrap around it, instructing him to conceal its aura. Sylvia continued, saying, "Please bear with me for one more thing." She cast a spell on Arthur, explaining that it would reveal everything when the time came. "I will open the portal. It won't directly take you to your home. You should arrive somewhere near humans." "Hurry," Sylvia urged. Despite his concerns for Sylvia, Arthur didn't want to leave her behind like that. Suddenly, the caves began to crack and a figure clad in dark armor appeared. He addressed Sylvia as Lady Sylvia and advised her to stop her stubbornness, offering to heal her wounds. "If you hands out the thing we want." Sylvia protected Arthur from the falling stones caused by the cracking cave. Arthur noticed that the armored figure resembled Sylvia's previous form. Using her last ounce of power, Sylvia cast the spell Static Void, freezing time. She said to the armored figure, "You have already caused us quite a lot of trouble. I have a confession to make, Arthur. Truth be told, I intentionally prolonged the transportation spell so that I could spend more time with you. I won't ask for your forgiveness, but I have one more selfish request. And you call me Grandma just this once." Arthur, holding Sylvia wing, said, No, just come with me. I don't know what you did, but everything is frozen right now. We can leave here together." Sylvia cried and said, "You know I can't." Sylvia then pushed Arthur into portal. With Arthur last word, "No." Sylvia, "Grandma." Sylvia replied, "Thank you, my child." At this moment, Arthur knew that she is gone. He will never have the chance to see her again. He screamed loud until all the birds flew away. His mind swam with memories of the near 4 months he had spent with Sylvia, for a time that seemed both long and short. Sylvia had treated him like her own blood, teaching him the things that he had lacked since coming to this world. Suddenly Sylvia's message popped into Arthur's mind. I hummed. Testing, ah good. Hello Artem. Arthur, curious, is this Sylvia? Sylvia continued, "This is Sylvia. If you are listening to this right now, it means I have shown you what I actually am." Arthur guessed Sylvia managed to leave him a message earlier. Sylvia said, "As frustrating as it might seem, you are nowhere near ready for the whole truth. Your body is that of a boy that has barely passed 4, and while your monocore has already progressed to the dark red stage, you are not long strong enough. As a small parting gift, I have infused my unique wand to you. Future development as a mage will depend on how well you are able to use my gift." Arthur pondered, "Who asked for this gift I had rather have?" Sylvia said, "Oh, and Art, I can imagine what you may be feeling right now. Sorry, anger, guilt, but remember that you have a family to look out for and a purpose to fulfill in this life. My only wish for you is to embrace the joys and innocence of childhood and become a man of which both your parents and I can be proud. When your monocore is past the white stage, you will hear from me once more. At that time, I will explain everything. So until then, I bid you farewell, King Grey." Arthur was shocked and wondered how long she had known his identity and how she had even found out. But one thing was clear. If he focused solely on training for the sake of revenge, his life wouldn't be much different from his previous one. For now, he could only move forward. But first, he needed to figure out where he was. Arthur gathered mana in his legs and dashed to the top of a tree. From there, he realized that even with mana, his vision was limited. However, one thing was clear. He was deep within the Elshire forest. Arthur jumped from tree to tree, utilizing the mana rotation that Sylvia had taught him. He was able to use magic for a longer period, but he couldn't help but wonder how he had ended up in this place. Sylvia told him that he would arrive near other humans, so Arthur kept looking around to find humans. Suddenly, he heard sounded like a human. He quickly dashed over there. Arthur thought hopefully they can take him with them. But before that, Arthur get close to them secretly to listen up what they are talking about. And Arthur immediately noticed they are slave traders, a kidnapped elf child girl. Arthur thought, despite my eagerness to get Hockme, I still needed a plan. Dealing with those slave traders first was the best course of action, but I did not strike immediately. Attacking all 4 of them head-on would be suicide even for me. So Arthur followed them all the way for waiting a chance and gathered the strength to make his move when their guards were down. Arthur found a chance. He grabbed a fruit throw to hounds. One of the slave trader went to calm them down as if they continue make noise will wake up everything in the forest. Arthur knew how to weapon. He was forced to utilize a technique from his previous life, a technique he was not even sure would work in this world. Arthur gathered power in his hand, shaping it into a knife, and dashed towards one of the enemies with a powerful blow. After taking him down, Arthur took away his dagger. Another slave trader wondered why the hounds were quiet and why it was taking him so long to return. Curious, he headed over to investigate. Arthur jumped on him and swiftly slashed him down. Arthur realized that fighting in this body was indeed more challenging and exhausting. He decided to finish the remaining enemies quickly while the last 2 were still asleep. Suddenly, the other 2 woke up. Arthur dashed towards one of them, attempting to strike. His attack was blocked. Nevertheless, he managed to deliver a swift slash to both of the enemy's legs. The moment the enemy yelled, the last remaining slave trader became aware of Arthur's presence. He laughed and mocked Arthur, calling him a kid mage. He remarked that they wouldn't want to accidentally kill the valuable asset that had just appeared before them, suggesting that Arthur might be more valuable than the young she-elf they had captured. The enemy swiftly teleported behind Arthur and threw a punch at him. However, Arthur managed to dodge the attack and counter with a kick. He also used his mana to cast a dagger, but the enemy easily caught it and broke its mana spring. The enemy then teleported in front of Arthur again, throwing the dagger at him and asking him to catch it, followed by a kick. Arthur realized that this guy's speed was fast. The enemy grabbed Arthur and said, "Just give up. You can't do anything with your little body." Arthur thought that condensing mana into a blade seemed to behave similarly to wind magic in this world. If that was the case, fire magic should work too. Holding the enemy's hand, Arthur cast fire magic, causing an explosion. Then he yelled, "I don't care if I have to sell your corpse, you are death." But before the word ends, Arthur already blinked behind him, took away his dagger, gave him final blow, and he walked to the last enemy which can't move, and killed him. Arthur walked up to the elf kid and said, "Come on, it is safe now. You can go back home." He covered her eyes and added, "There are things here that little kids are better off not seeing." After they had moved a distance away, Arthur removed the cover. The elf kid thanked him, expressing her gratitude. Arthur made the decision to leave, but the elf kid grabbed onto his clothes and gave him a pleading look as if to say, "I am scared, don't leave me. How can you abandon such a cute little elf in the woods?" Arthur responded, "Look, I need to get home too. Those bad guys won't chase you anymore. Besides, aren't elves generally safe in this forest anyway?" The elf kid quickly shook her head and replied, "No, beasts are only scared of adults. My parents said that kids will get eaten by hounds or tree golems." Arthur asked the elf, "Do you know how long it will take to get to where we live from here?" The elf replied, "I don't know." Arthur sighed and said, "Just stay here. I will go gather some supplies for us. Hopefully the trip won't be too long." He salvaged what he could for the journey ahead. Neither of them knew how long it would take, and Arthur also had to consider the journey back. He thought, "It's a shame we can't take the carriage, but it might be for the best. We would stick out like sore thumbs riding that. I can only hope that the elves have something that can take me back to the human kingdom." Arthur told the elf, "I found these clothes inside the carriage and assumed they were yours. Wear the cloak over them since it will probably get cold." So they began their journey to Elf's home. As they walked in the vague direction she pointed to, he got to know more about the elf child. Tesha Ralith is the elf child name. Tesha Kasitan why Arthur ended up in the Elshire forest. So Arthur explained everything to her. Tesha questioned, "Then is it true that all male humans are perverts and have more than one wife?" Arthur questioned, "What? Who told you that?" Tesha cried and said, "My grandpa." Arthur replied, "Well, I am sure there are perverts among elves too." "Wait, do you even know what pervert means?" Tesha replied, "Not really." Arthur explained, "Well, To answer your question, usually only some nobles prefer to have mutable wives. From Tasha's words, Elenwar is fun. She spends a lot of time with her caretakers and grandpas since her mom and dad are busy. Tasha continued, once she awakens, she will probably be given a mentor to train under. She's pretty excited about that. Arthur said the education system seems a bit more inclusive in Elenwar if everyone is assigned a private mentor upon awakening. Arthur never told Tasha that all those bad guys died. He told her they ran into a rather unfortunate accident and that she won't ever see them again. Arthur told Tasha she should get some sleep and he will keep guard outside. Arthur thought he wanted to use this time to figure out what this item Sylvia left him was, but Tasha questioned if he needed some rest too. After a while, she said that beasts are more likely to appear if they notice him outside. Therefore, she proposed that for their safety, he should keep guard inside the tent. So Arthur went inside, and Tasha told him it's not because she's scared. Next day, they continued their journey with unfamiliar surroundings and time quickly passing as the only indicators of their progress. After Tasha's initial desperation and fears had passed, it was obvious she had no idea how to interact with Arthur. Arthur thought, I will admit that worries of my family and impatience to get back home did not leave me in the best of moods. But what made the journey almost unbearable were the agonizing pains coming from my monocore that struck unpredictably. Tasha concerned, is everything okay? Arthur replied he is fine, but during night the pain almost make Arthur unable to sleep. Another day, Arthur felt the pain is coming more frequently now, but Arthur still decided to hide it, else Tasha will only worry. Days passed and Tasha began to recognize more and more of our familiar surroundings. However, our pace had slowed down as Tasha's body couldn't keep up with the toll of constant travel. Arthur took over carrying the backpack, and he thought to himself that despite strengthening his body with mana, the pains continued to grow, making it harder to hide them from the worried elf. Tasha asked Arthur, since we've become close friends, can I call you Art like your family does? Arthur replied, I don't mind, but Tasha responded, is that it? Arthur then said, I would be most honored if Tasha referred to this humble countryside boy as Art. Tasha turned her head and said, there you go, talking all weird again like some old man. Arthur replied, better than being a crybaby who can't even pee by herself without me nearby with my eyes closed and ears shut. Tasha playfully pulled Arthur's mouth and told him to shut up. Suddenly, Tasha spotted something that she thought might be their family sign. After another night, they finally found Tasha's home. A green portal appeared, and Tasha excitedly said, come on, Art. Tasha said, we are here. Arthur thought, pristine, that was the only word that came to mind. And even that did not do the scene in front of me justice. With a few green lights spawned in front of them, a few guards appeared and said, we welcome back the royal princess. Now Arthur only realized Tasha is the princess. The guard said, princess, we arrived as soon as we noticed the royal teleportation gate had been used. King and Queen Yao, my baby. Tasha, you are okay. Alduin Iralith, king of Elenwar. Muriel Iralith, queen of Elenwar. And behind of them is Tasha grandpa. Virian Iralith, a name noted in every history book. Former king of Elenwar, who left the last war against the humans of the Sapping Kingdom. Arthur slightly pushed Tasha and wonder if mother and father will react like this when they see me. King of Elenwar thanks for Arthur help, not just as the king of Elenwar, but as this little one's father. As a small gesture of gratitude for helping Tasha arrive home safely, please accompany us to our home. The king gets some rest, and after please tell us what happened. Arthur thought his tone is gentle, but his eyes show that this is not an offer. It is an order. Arthur replied, I am honored. Tasha pulled Arthur's hand, said, let's go, there's a lot I want you to see, which shocked all the elf beings. Arthur felt an impressive castle after learning that Tess was a princess, but that was huge and beautiful. Arthur wondered what sort of corny novel did I wind up inside. Queen said, this child is our guest, please get him washed up and into a room to rest. But Arthur replied, thank you, but I would like to explain what happened first. Arthur introduced, my name is Arthur Lewin, from a humble town in the kingdom of Sappin. It is an honor to be in the presence of the royal family. I wonder a little over the top for an introduction, but discussion is not going to progress if they treat me like a child. King replied, despite you claiming to be from humble origins, you seem rather mature and well-educated. Arthur Lewin, very well, I'd like to hear what happened. And so, Arthur recounted his journey, starting from a vague account stating that I had gotten separated from my family after running into bandits. It was not a lie, but a half-truth. Inevitably, as the story progressed to when I had run into their daughter, the atmosphere shifted. The king's anger flared as he exclaimed, slave traders! I should have known they were humans. Arthur, remaining respectful, responded, without disrespect, your majesty, slave trading is a profession, not a race. The guards instinctively drew their swords, ready to strike, but Virion intervened, restraining them. Virion, with a stern expression, questioned Arthur, "Did you negotiate with them? Did you beg for mercy?" Arthur calmly replied, "No, Elder Virion. While I may be a child, I am also a mage. I confronted the slave traders, eliminated them, and rescued your granddaughter." One of the guards, unable to contain his anger, unsheathed his sword and yelled, accusing Arthur of spreading lies. However, Virion quickly intervened and halted the guards' aggressive actions. Arthur continued, undeterred, "Regardless of whether anyone believes me, Princess Tesha has been safely returned. All I desire now is to reunite with my family in Sepin." Tesha questioned, "You are going to leave already, Art?" Arthur said, knowing history, "I don't think it is appropriate for a human to be inside this kingdom for too long, Princess. Besides, my priority is to make sure my family is safe and let them know that I'm okay as well." He said, "Regardless of our two kingdoms past, you have saved our daughter and taken the trouble to accompany her all the way back to us, which entitles you to a befitting reward. Unfortunately, the teleportation gate linked with Sepin Kingdom is only accessible once every 7 years during the summit conference between the three races. It will be another 5 years until the gate will open. However, we'd be happy to send a group of guards to escort you back home safely. I'd also like to extend our hospitality. Some of us are tolerant enough, but too many still hold grudges towards human because of the war long ago. So for now, make yourself at home. We will have your escorts prepared by tomorrow morning." Arthur, thank you for that. And he went to rest, but while he was bathing, the pain cursed and it was getting worse. Arthur thought, "I don't know what to do, Sylvia. I wish you were here to help me." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. After the door opened, Tesha used her head to hit Arthur and said, "Dummy, first you talk so coldly to my family, and now you're already going back." Arthur replied, "I wasn't being cold, Tess. I was respectful because you know they are the king and queen of this entire kingdom. Why didn't you tell me?" Tess showed a tea and continued, "Still, I don't want you to leave. You are the first friend I have." Arthur carried Tess's shoulders and said, "Come on, crybaby princess, show me around the castle." Tesha brought Arthur to her favorite place in the castle. Tesha said if you stayed here until spring, you could see all of the flowers bloom here. At least you are able to see the glow bees harvesting. Suddenly, Arthur sensed a dagger attack towards Tesha. He quickly pulled her to dodge it and counterattacked. And he realized it was Virion. Arthur instantly yelled, "What the hell? You just tried to kill your own granddaughter." Virion replied, "It might have left her a small welt, but I doubt that toy you are holding could kill anyone." Then Arthur realized he had been tricked. Virion continued, "To think you had caught my little present and used it against me. Your money usage is mediocre at best, but I can see how you were able to kill a few slave traders." Arthur thought, "This old man has a loose screw." Tesha said, "Grandpa, stop teasing Art." Virion replied, "Tease? You should know why I came here. It has been a while since I've met someone interesting." Virion tossed a wooden sword to Arthur and said, "Let's see what you're made of, brat." Arthur dashed towards Virion and delivered a slashing attack, but Virion blinked behind Arthur and countered with a knife hand strike. However, Arthur managed to block the strike with his arm. Knowing Virion's strength, Arthur quickly jumped and evaded another powerful punch. Virion swiftly followed up with an elbow strike towards Arthur. Reacting swiftly, Arthur grabbed his wooden sword and launched a series of continuous slashes, but Virion skillfully blocked each one. Arthur realized that even with his mana and minimized movements, he couldn't keep up with Virion's speed and skill. Once again, Virion blinked behind Arthur, but this time Arthur seized the opportunity to jump and dodge the attack. Using his left hand to support his body, he executed a quick spin with the wooden sword, finally managing to scratch Virion's head. Virion said, "It seems like I deserve this for being arrogant, but to think you would actually be able to land a hit. Now, let's start round 2. Tesha pinched on Virion said, "I think you have bullied Art enough, Grandpa." Virion yelled, "It hurts, little one." Tesha said, "You should have gone easier on him." Virion replied, "I am afraid that if I had gone easier on him, he'd be the one bullying me." Arthur said, "Haha, I am honored the esteemed elder Virion thinks so highly of me." Virion turned his head, said, "Honored is it if that is the case, become my disciple." Virion questioned, "So do you agree?" Arthur replied, "You are actually serious. First of all, I am a human. Is it even allowed for humans to stay in this kingdom?" Virion said, "No one will dare try and kick you out while you are under my tutelage. I know you realize that you are already better than other kids, even some adults, but just know that I can teach you something even the most capable mages back in Sapin can't." Arthur responded, "No, even if you say that, I can't. Not when I don't even know how my parents, who don't even know whether I am dead or alive, are doing." Virian said if there was a way for you to see how they are doing and communicate with them to let them know you are okay, is that not enough? Arthur replied, what do you mean? Virian instructed Tesha to wash up and go to bed. Then he continued, I realize I am being rather impatient, but it has to do with what I sensed earlier during our little spar. You have been having bouts of searing pain where your monocore is, right? And those bouts are becoming more frequent. Arthur was curious and asked, how did you know that? Virian continued, it's not just how I knew, but the fact that you are unaware of the reason for your pains is a problem. Do you not know what a beast will is? Arthur thought for a moment. Beast will. It was a term I had never heard before, he said, but then he immediately recalled the moment Sylvia struck him at his core. Virian explained, I am sure you know or have even encountered a few monon beasts already. But a beast powerful enough to be categorized as class A or higher gains the ability to pass on a will or inherent ability down once, either to their offspring or a person they are bound to. I won't pry into how you stumbled upon such a powerful beast will, but at this stage, the power residing within you is doing more harm than good. Arthur questioned, the fact that you know all of this, do you have a beast will too? Virian replied, yes, I am what is called a beast tamer. It is a title you can obtain once you have fully conquered the monstrous beast will inside of you. He continued, I know how important it is for you to go back to your family, but doing so right now comes with a grave risk. The power from your beast will is too potent for your immature body to handle. If it is not controlled soon, the power you have obtained will destroy your body from the inside out. Arthur thought, what is this heavy sensation pressing down on my body? Is this monster the personification of my worries, my burdens, the expectations placed on me haunting me even in my sleep? Tesha said, good morning, Art, wakey wakey. Arthur replied, not now, shadow monster, 5 more minutes. Tesha replied, who are you calling a monster? Tesha said, your hair looks funny. Arthur replied, you are one to talk, mini Medusa. Tesha continued, hey, is it true you are going to stay here? Rampant told me this morning that you are. Arthur replied, maybe we will know for sure after the trip with Elder Virian, princess. Tesha pinch on Arthur said, not princess. Call me Tass. TSS, I'm going to get angry if you keep doing that. Arthur responded, okay. Now let me shower and get ready unless you want to watch. I suggest you leave the room, Tess. Tesha said, how perverted. Grandpa was right. Arthur yelled, stop using words you barely know. King Alduin said, Father, please you know it is not appropriate for a human to be residing within this kingdom. Queen Muriel said, Alduin is right, Elder Virian. I will always be grateful to the boy for saving Tesha, but allowing a human to stay here goes against all traditions. Virian replied, I have taken a liking to the brat. There's no need to say more. Besides, your dogger seems to approve of my decision as well. Tesha nodded her head. Virian continued, he will be under my direct guidance. Make sure everyone in the kingdom knows that. Arthur thought, looks like the elder really can be trusted. During the way to meet Virian, mysterious friend. While Tesha was asleep, Virian told Arthur, Tesha being the only princess of this kingdom caused her to grow up in a lonely environment. She has been hurt too many times by both adults and even children pretending to be her friend. Eventually she grew cold and distant, building a wall constantly around herself. In the short time that I have seen her with you, she has shown me more smiles and laughs than she has in the last few years. For that, thank you. Soon they arrived at their destination. Suddenly Virian kicked the door and yelled, we are here, you old witch. Come up. The old lady opened the door and said, my ears still work perfectly, you grouch. Virian introduced, this is Rinia Darkasen, old friend and a very special deviant that can help you. Arthur thought being a deviant means she is similar to my mother, whose magic does not fall into the categories of the 4 basic elements. He wondered how she will be able to help. Arthur said, my apologies for sounding impatient, but Gramps said your magic can help me reach my parents. Rinia replied, boy, I am what is called a diviner. Magic of this nature varies from mage to mage, but I am quite capable. This means that there is very little someone can hide from me if I so choose to pry. For example, I know that you are special, so special, in fact, that there are parts of your life that even I can't see. But these eyes have seen pieces both of your past and future. But you are not here for my clairvoyant abilities. You are here to see your parents and to let them know you are alive, right? And lean forward and keep your eyes on the basin of water. Focus on the image of your parents as clearly and detailed as possible. Once you are able to see them in the water, you will be able to speak to them. Arthur imagined Mom with her glowing auburn hair and sun-kissed complexion radiating a gentle warmth. The thin brows always knitted together, worrying about me. Dad, with his strong blue gaze and goofy smile that brightens even the dullest of days, his silly quips and simple nature at home, severely at odds with his charisma as a leader and fighter.
The tide comes in.
Soon Reynolds and Alice seemed to be going through vicissitudes and feeling quite depressed. Alice thought, This used to be yours and Arthur's favorite dish. Suddenly, Arthur's voice popped into their minds. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. It's me, your son Arthur, he said. Reynolds was shocked, and his spoon fell from his hand. Arthur continued, You're probably really surprised to be hearing my voice inside your head. I'll explain everything later, but for now, I just want you to know that I'm alive and safe. I managed to survive the fall off the cliff, just barely. This should be kept a secret, but I am currently staying in the kingdom of Elenoir with the elves. No, it must have been hard. It's been hard for me too, but I'm glad you are both okay. I hope you don't blame each other for what happened. I'm proud of what I did back then, and if I could go back in time, I would do it again, even if it meant risking my life. I wish I could come to you guys, but that might be a little difficult right now. It seems I have a sort of illness that I need to get treated. I'm not in any danger, but I need to receive treatment before heading back home. I'm not sure when the next time I can reach out like this will be. There's a mage here who is a deviant like you, Mom. She's the one allowing you guys to hear my voice. Dad, I'll keep practicing magic and fighting while I'm here recovering. Don't be surprised if I can beat you in a match the next time we meet. Until then, keep Mom and the baby safe. Mom, Dad, I love you both. Take care until I get back. Finally, the heavy burden in Alice and Reynolds' hearts was lifted. Tears filled their eyes, signifying relief from their past sorrows. Likewise, Arthur cried and said, I am ready. King Alduin held Arthur and said, It seems that years of being a king has made me a bit old-fashioned and stubborn. Queen Muriel said what he is trying to say is, We are sorry for earlier. Please accept our apology and consider this place your own. King Alduin continued, You are my daughter's savior and my father's very first disciple. Let me welcome you once again properly. Arthur replied, Thank you for your generosity. Suddenly Tesha rushed towards and Fran. Arthur said, If you are really sorry to Arthur, then let us play outside. I want to show him around the city. Soon Tesha said, Let's go, Art. Tesha bring Arthur around the city. Suddenly and Arthur bumped into an elf. The elf said, Gross. I got human germs on me. Just because Elder Virion favors you a bit, do you think you belong here? The elf point on Arthur. Tesha pulled Arthur said, Come on, Art, let's just go. Arthur thought this blatantly cliche-side character. I kind of want to mess with him. The elf said, Princess, while I applaud your kindness, it is beneath your level to be with this human commoner. Allow me, Faerith Isar, to escort you. After some argument between Faerith and Arthur, Faerith finally became angry and yelled, For the pride of the Isar house, I challenge you to a duel. Tesha questioned, How dare you initiate a duel with the disciple of Elder Virion? You may be of noble blood, but you should still know your place, Faerith. Faerith replied, My apologies, Princess, but my father has taught me to never let anyone trample on my pride. Soon the duel began, but as soon as Arthur threw a punch, the duel was over. Tesha thought, I knew this was going to happen. Tesha pulled Arthur and they ran. Arthur thought, I couldn't help but grow to appreciate this little princess more and more. All the rest of the day was not as enjoyable as playing with a bull like Faerith. It was refreshing and allowed me to take my mind off things. Tesha asked, Your training starts tomorrow, right? Are you nervous? Arthur thought about what Virion had told him before. I am not sure how you were taught so far, but I assure you that my lessons won't be easy. Never mind the pain from your monocore. The assimilation process used by beast tamers has often been compared to submerging your body in boiling tar. You will be stuck here in this foreign land without the comfort of family. Even daily life will become arduous, but if you can endure, the payoff will be enormous. Are you up for it, brat? Arthur replied, I am excited. I have come a long way to get to where I am now. The training, seeing my parents. I am excited for all of that and more. I can't wait to see what the future has in store for me. 3 years later, the world is comprised of 4 basic elements and their higher forms. These higher elements, such as ice, gravity, lightning, and sound, can only be controlled by mages who have surpassed mastery of their foundational elements. We refer to these mages as deviants. Dwarves are capable of manipulating earth and fire, similar to elves, but they possess a much stronger affinity for these 2 elements. A notable characteristic of dwarves is their ability to shape and manipulate metal, a skill possessed by all dwarves. Talented dwarves can harness fire and earth to such an advanced level that they can conjure and manipulate magma. Elves are limited to the elements of water, wind, and earth, but they have a significantly higher affinity for these elements compared to humans. In rare cases, elves can also produce a special type of deviant capable of controlling plants. However, elves are unable to produce mages who can manipulate the higher forms of water, wind, and earth. Human mages possess the unique ability to manipulate any combination of the 4 basic elements. They are also the only race capable of producing deviants in any of these elements, as well as anomalies that cannot be categorized within the elemental framework, such as emitters and healers. There exists a subtle power balance between our three races, taking into account factors such as population, inherent affinity to elements, and diversity among mages. Arthur asked if his explanation was good enough, and Virion responded that it was passable. Tesha then raised a question about the assimilation process and whether it would be better for Art to train his body physically while using magic, like she did. Arthur reflected on his previous lessons and acknowledged that the differences between races had become evident over the past 3 years. All humans were considered talented if they awakened their magical abilities in their late preteen years. It was not uncommon for elven children to awaken as early as 10. Tesha, in particular, had experienced her awakening at the tender age of 9, leading her to feel that it was unfair for her to be the only one subject to rigorous training and physical beatings. Arthur realized that Tesha had been training her conjuring skills with a tutor while learning combat techniques from her grandfather. He believed that she would become an incredible